The way I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad was my wife Kim and I had a goal. And our goal was to be retired in 10 years. You know, people wait till they're 65 or 70 to retire. My goal was to retire in 10. So that means without a job and without a 401k, without IRAs and all that. So we did it by being entrepreneurs and investors in real estate. So I retired at 47, Kim was retired at 37. And once we had done that, I went down to Bisbee, Arizona, which is the most beautiful little town in Arizona, I believe. It's an old mining town. You don't need air conditioning in Bisbee, even in the summertime, because the weather is perfect. It's the most perfect weather in America. So I'm out there, I'm building a little house because I wanted to learn how to be a builder. I bought a stagecoach depot and converted it into a house. So it was a stagecoach depot that ran between Tombstone, Arizona and Bisbee, Arizona. And so I was out there working. And at night, there was no television, no radio, so isolated. So I sat there just writing away my little computer. And that's where Rich Dad, Poor Dad came from. So Kim and I created the cash flow board game, and the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book came out. This book came out in 1997. And I shopped it to all the publishers in New York City, and they all had reject. They said, "You don't know what you're talking about." You know, because I don't have stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. I don't have any of that. I don't have a retirement plan. I don't need a job. I don't like the stock market. And I like real estate. I make a lot of money. I don't pay taxes legally. They said, "You don't know what you're talking about." So this book was rejected. And so finally, I called my friend in Austin, Texas, and he had a car wash. So I said, "Would you mind putting this book inside your car wash for sale?" He says, "We don't sell books in car washes." And I said, "Well, that's good. There's no competition for my book." He says, "You put it in there 2 weeks. If it's not gone, you get it back." I said, "Got a deal." So I sent him, I think, about 24 of these books. And they sat there. So I'd call him up. He says, "They're still here." I said, "Don't, just take your time, take your time." And then one day, he says, "They're gone. Somebody bought them." I said, "Somebody bought them?" And he says, "Yeah." I said, "Well, who bought it?" He says, "I don't know. Somebody just bought it. They're all gone, all 24 of them, let's say." I went, "Holy mackerel." And then about a month later, I got a phone call from this guy he says, from Dallas, Texas. He goes, "My name is Bill Galvin." And I said, "I read your book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad." I said, "Oh, did you buy it?" He said, "No, my friend bought it for me." I said, "Okay." Dr. Tom Burns. I said, "Okay." And he said, "It's a good book. How many books you got?" And Kim and I had printed 1,000. And how many you got left? I said, 1,000 minus 24. He says, "I'll take the rest of them." And I said, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm with Amway." He's a diamond with Amway. So he took all the books and they sent it out throughout the world. And that's how Rich Dad, Poor Dad, in two years, he was on the New York Times bestseller list, even though it was self-published, which New York Times is, they're not the most conservative organization, but because I wasn't from the academic world, they didn't like it that my book was #1 sitting up there and self-published. My first business was a nylon and Velcro surfer wallet business, and didn't sell. So everybody knows what those wallets are today, but back then, this was 1974 or 5. Yeah, 75. They didn't know what the wallets were. So we were going broke really fast. We bought 100,000 of these wallets from Korea. We shipped it to our warehouse in Long Island, and we were borrowing money from our investors. So we raised about $600,000 to get this little goofy wallet business up. So we were in serious trouble. I owed my father about $200,000. My rich dad was laughing at me. We were going broke so quickly because we couldn't move the wallets, 100,000 of them. They were sitting in this bonded warehouse on Long Island, and nobody would buy them from us. So then, the good thing about stupidity, there it is, makes you smarter. So I started thinking. We started thinking. So what's wrong? And it said what was happening in the world at that time, all the baby boomers were fat, so they had to start running. So jogging was coming online, and nobody jogged before because, so these guys are all jogging. And then we're reading the paper. We're sitting in Honolulu going broke fast. And we read the paper, this jogger went to Golden Gate Park in San Francisco and was jogging around the park. And what the jogger did was he had no place to put his car key. So what did they do? He puts it on the front tire of his car and goes for a jog around the park. So we're reading this newspaper. And voila, when he comes back to his car wasn't there.
Oh, gosh.
So the guy says, they stole my car.
Oh, my goodness.
And so the question was on the headline of the newspaper article, what does a jogger do with her key? And so we sat there and said, oh my God, a problem. A problem. So with that, I designed the shoe pocket. And you can see this picture right here. It's Playboy magazine. I mean, she's a nice looking young model with nothing on but shoe pocket. But anyway, so we were going broke so fast by then. But when that picture hit Playboy, suddenly we were geniuses. And everybody started throwing their money at us. And all this product, our wallets were selling, our shoe pockets were selling, investors were happy, and the sales went through the roof. So we were extremely successful. So we went from risk, stupid, smarter, successful. But the problem is how do we finance our inventory? Because the demand was worldwide, and we couldn't keep up with demand. So I borrowed another $100,000, and I went to my CPA, my CFO, Stanley. So I said, Stanley, will this $100,000 solve my inventory problem? He goes, yes, it will. So I gave Stanley the check, and he ran off with it. I had no signed documentation. I turned it over to him. He said I owed him the money. So that was one of my first, 6-figure, 7-figure mistakes.